Lauren Southern destroyed Pam Damoff in committee last week, but Pam doesn't really need any help. All she has to do is open her mouth and she destroys herself. Welcome to my channel, y'all. I hope you're having a great day. I posted a video yesterday about the committee meeting that Lauren Southern appeared in last week. That video was getting pretty long, so I had to cut it off, but I couldn't just leave it at that. Pam Damoff really demonstrated just how stupid she is and how much of an authoritative person she is. If you recall, I believe it was Pam Damoff who suggested that Lauren Chen and Lauren Southern be subpoenaed or summoned to this committee meeting. I think she's probably regretting that decision now because Lauren Southern totally destroyed her. Let's jump right into committee and see what happened.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Southern, for being here today. I want to go back to your trip that you took to Russia in 2018. Who paid for that trip?
I paid for it.
You mentioned that you did several interviews there. Were you paid for those interviews?
I was not paid to do any of those interviews.
So I mean, it's come up who you interviewed while you were there, Alexander Dugin, who not only has been referred to as Vladimir Putin's brain. Actually, before I ask you this, how did you get an interview with him?
I watched an episode of The Agenda with Steve Piken where he interviewed Alexander Dugin, and then at a either earlier or later date, he also interviewed a translator of Dugin's, who was a University of Toronto PhD student. And I contacted either him or one of his translators and got his email and said, Mr. Dugin, could I conduct an interview with you? And in a very brief response, he just said yes.
Isn't it funny, Pam, that sometimes all you have to do is ask, and then you can get an interview with somebody? I guess being polite and being objective is a good thing as well. I'm not sure anybody would agree to have an interview with you knowing your biases, but Lauren's not you.
So I just want to read, in 2014, Dugin said Russia should, quote, kill Ukrainians. He's previously been involved with Pomyat, which has been described as the most significant anti-Semitic organization since Perestroika. He's expressed his admiration for the SS, adopting the alter ego named Hans Sievers, named after the war criminal, who was General Secretary of a Nazi research institute that Heinrich Himmler established. I'm just curious. I know you've mentioned Steve Piken a number of times, and I had limited time to look here, slightly different than the interview that you did. I'll just be honest. Why would you want to platform someone like that?
The exact same reason Steve Piken did and TVO did, because he is an interesting geopolitical figure, and I was more right than I bargained for initially at how interesting he would get.
Seriously, Pam? Why would you want to platform somebody like that? Have you never heard the term sunlight is the best disinfectant? It doesn't matter if you agree with somebody. It doesn't matter if their views are abhorrent to you. Sometimes people in power or associated to power are not the nicest people in the world. Look at yourself, for example. You're in the Liberal Party and you hold a relatively low level of power, but power nonetheless, and you're not a very nice person. Should we ban you from all platforms, Pam?
Do you agree with his views on Ukraine?
No, I don't think we should kill the Ukrainians. On the contrary, I think we should be trying to not kill anybody. Not a big fan of killing people, Ukrainian or otherwise.
And do you prescribe to his anti-Semitic views?
No. Once again, you're interviewing me right now. Do you agree with all of my opinions?
No, I actually find some of them quite offensive. I'm just curious what a Canadian language is. Is that Ojibwe and Cree?
Well, Pam, I think that would be English, French, Ojibwe, Cree, Mohawk, Micmac, Haida, Coast Salish, Dene. There's a lot of Canadian languages out there, but one thing for sure is what she is referring to is the national languages, the languages that are actually on the books, part of our law in Canada. I think that you should be smart enough to figure that one out, Pam. Oh, I forgot. You're a Liberal.
Typically in Canada, our national languages are English and French. I kind of figured this was common knowledge in here, but
Okay. Well, I guess, it's funny. I was just in the Baltic countries and met with the NATO Center of Excellence on Strategic Communications. And a lot of what you put out aligns perfectly with the type of Russian misinformation that I heard about, particularly around immigration. You keep referring to Steve Paikin and the fact that he did an interview with someone. You went to Russia, if I'm not mistaken, you were barred from going to the UK, is that correct?
Yes, I was barred from going to the UK.
And why was that?
That was because I tried to set up a pride parade in Luton, and the Islamic population there typically are not a big fan of that. And I was told that it was stirring up hatred.
I don't care who you are. Right there is funny. This liberal thinks that she could kind of get a gotcha moment out of it. But no, Lauren was setting up a pride celebration, and she was banned from England for trying to do that because it would insult the Islamic population and would maybe cause violence and hatred. Then, of course, Pam just needs to pivot because that doesn't suit her narrative, does it?
And so you went to Russia to stir up hatred against Jews?
I'm so sorry. What are you referring to?
Look who you deliberately made a trip to Russia to interview someone who is one of the most anti-Semitic people around. Is it just to be controversial? Is that, do you find that funny?
What part? Yeah, I do find it funny that you were accusing me of taking a trip to Russia to stir up hatred around Jews when I don't think Jews came up once during my interview with Alexander Dugin. I don't know where you're getting that from. And once again, Steve Paikin conducted an interview with him. I guess you would have to make the same anti-Semitic accusation against TVO.
Ms. Southern, his views are well known, and you deliberately went there, so you're basically trying to create chaos.
If it falls into the hands of chaos, there is no hope for our country.
Funny thing is, that's what they say Russia does with all the things that they do, is try to create chaos in society. So it sounds like your goal is to try and create chaos, and I don't get the sense that you have a lot of respect for Western liberal democracy as it is.
So, of course, Pam doesn't think that you should ever interview somebody who you disagree with, who holds different views than you do. That's just ridiculous, Pam. And of course, she accuses Lauren of not subscribing to liberal democratic values. Well, Pam, I think you're the one who doesn't subscribe to liberal democratic values. You want to shut down freedom of speech. You don't want anybody who has a different opinion than yours to be able to speak. And you want to come down hard on Lauren for doing an interview of an internationally known person who may or may not be interesting and may or may not be a good person. But so what? If we don't interview people who have different views than we do, then we're not going to learn anything, are we? Okay, enough of Pam. She's not very intelligent anyways, and she just got roasted. Let's go now to a few other members of the committee and see what they had to ask Lauren and what her responses were.
I'd like to come back to the monetary issue that was addressed earlier. You said that Tenant Media gave you a $275,000 US dollar budget, and your take home was about 100,000 Canadian. That's what you earned for yourself. Yes. Thank you. Did anybody at any time ask you to reimburse that money? When Tenant was closed, when there were allegations, did you meet any by the RCMP or CSIS or any type of security service that you met further to that?
What a very odd question. So you work for an organization, let's say the Government of Canada, and you find out that the Government of Canada or members in the Government of Canada are criminals. They're conducting criminal activities. Maybe they're conducting massive amounts of fraud, or they're associated with international cocaine dealers. And since they are now suspects in criminal activity, are you now supposed to return all of, your income? That is just a stupid question.
So I have not been asked to reimburse any of that money, but I have been visited by CSIS, who quite frankly have been putting immense psychological pressure on me to become an informant on this subject and other subjects. Ultimately, I declined because I'm not looking to become an asset for foreign governments nor this government, and I did not like the way in which they threatened and stalked me. And I would like to know how much Canadians paid for that, by the way.
We're going to come back to this in just a little bit, because the way she alleges she was treated by CSIS is quite horrendous when you think about it. So I don't want to let that go just yet. But this particular member of the committee goes on to ask another quite silly question, almost as if she's not really in the room. Maybe her translation is off. I don't know. But it doesn't appear like she's kind of tuned in to the overall conversation.
In the UN, reported last September, in February 22, that Russia had begun an illegal war on Ukraine. There were more than 11,000 civilians killed and many other thousands that were injured. That's a lot of people. What would you think about being an agent for this type of country that would wage this type of war on another country? Does not that put you ill at ease?
You will never catch me speaking ill of the Ukrainian people. They are good people, and it is horrific what is happening to them and the losses that are happening to their community. And I hope that the suffering they are going through ends, and I hope that the Ukrainian people will be free. I do not and have never wanted to be an agent of any state, an asset of any state, foreign or domestic, and I have always, at any inkling that that is happening, have run the other way.
The next committee member up for questioning is Gord Johns again. And as far as stupidity goes, he doesn't let us down.
I really only have one burning question left, and that's, do you take any steps whatsoever to verify that the people paying you are legitimate and don't have ulterior motives?
Oh, what about you, Mr. Johns? Are you taking steps to ensure that the NDP don't have illegitimate motives? Or are you taking steps that they don't make, supply and confidence agreements with corrupt governments? What about you, Mr. Johns? What steps are you taking?
This would not be a question being asked of any individual working in media, if not for the retrospect of this situation. I've had contracts. I've worked with many individuals. They have all looked the same as Tenet, and they have never come up with this problem. This is a very unique circumstance. And once again, I think the eyes of retrospect are playing heavy on your questioning.
Well, I think given the situation and that you're the Tenet's been under investigation with the U.S. government, I think it does qualify as a reasonable question.
If you think that there was a action I should have or could have taken that the average person would normally do, please do let me know, Mr. Johns.
Will you take any, in the future, will you be doing any significant efforts to ensure that that the people are paying you are legitimate and don't have ulterior motives? Is this something that you're going to incorporate into your future business model?
I have always worked very hard to ensure that the things I am doing are legitimate, that I'm not being influenced by anyone. I've lost jobs over this. Now, there is a lot of money, as I'm sure you know, probably not the majority coming from Russia, probably more from China, other countries, going into politics, going into media, going into influencing what people think. The way I protect myself from that, because it is a completely messed up and influenced media organization system going on right now, ecosystem, is I only sign contracts with people who give me full creative control, because right now in this environment, that is the only way to protect yourself. If you are ever working for an organization that has creative control over you, you're going to find yourself in hot water. And quite frankly, that is the majority of media outlets within this country too.
So right now, you're telling us right now that you're not going to take any different steps to ensure that the people that are paying you are legitimate and don't have ulterior motives?
The steps I'm taking is I'm not going to work in media again, because I am tired of this subterranean Fed level nonsense going on. And I would like to just go on with my normal life as a Canadian, not being harassed by CSIS or the government or you people.
I'm thinking she's actually enjoying this, but maybe she's not. Maybe she's under stress here, but she's tearing this committee apart. So I don't know. It's good to see, and I get the impression that she's enjoying tearing this committee apart. The next questioner up is a Conservative, and he doesn't add a whole lot. We're not going to go over all of his questions. He does bring up a few points, and I think he's actually being fairly respectful towards her, unlike the other questioners. So let's take a look at some of the things that he had to ask.
My questions aren't intended to harass, but rather find out some information. Now, you're described as a social media influencer, someone who is a political activist and a commentator, but what are your objectives when you, what do you aim to achieve when you connect with an audience?
My aim has always been to speak for people that don't feel they have had a voice in the mainstream media or regular media, and to convey facts. You know, I'm a human being. Everyone that does media is a human being. I don't want people to follow me like I'm some sort of god and take everything I say as, you know, their opinion, 100% influence. I want to provide as much factual information as I can, data from my own research or from on the ground, and let people take that information and look at a variety of different sources and come to their own conclusions. That is my hope for the work that I have done.
And that should be everybody's hope, especially in the mainstream media. Now, she's a commentator, I'm a commentator. We give our opinions. Mainstream media, though, they're reporters. They're not supposed to give their opinions. They're supposed to represent the facts, but they don't. Mr. Motz here is going to ask questions about some of her scathing remarks of the mainstream media.
To Mr. John's question, you talked about receiving compensation, and you made reference to the media outlets that exist today,
yes,
the national media outlets, receiving compensation from potentially places in this globe that are hostile to our democracy in Canada.
Yes, what I was getting to is I believe there is a I would have to give a written response later with the details, but based on my time...
Please?
Sorry?
Could you?
Yes, I can. Based on the time I've spent in media, over those 10 years, I believe that a large majority of content is being influenced both from corporations, domestic government, foreign government, being paid for. I would say that even half the contributions, likes, and views on content are now all botted, not legitimate, genuine views. They're being astroturfed, and this is part of the reason that I am personally stepping away from my partaking in social media myself, because I don't believe that a lot of the internet we are engaging with today are real people. It is very different. You can feel it if you spent time on the internet 10 years ago.
As promised, we're going to get back to the interactions Lauren had with CSIS, and this next questioner is actually going to open that door for her. So let's go and see what happened here.
Ms. Southern, have you been contacted by Canadian or American law enforcement about your role in the Russian-run tenant media op, given the U.S. indictment?
Yes, as I mentioned, CSIS came to my house while I was making dinner for my child and tried to speak with me, but did so in a way that I was not comfortable with. And I have also, quite frankly, experienced quite a bit of harassment and stalking from them. When I told them I did not want to speak, they called me dozens and dozens of times. They found my gym. They told me that if I did not essentially become an informant for them, that I love being a mother, I love my child, and I would love to see him grow up and be there to provide for him, and it would be a shame if something happened to me. So I'm not too impressed with the state of law enforcement in this country right now, to be honest.
Let's be clear. CSIS isn't exactly law enforcement. They used to be part of the RCMP. They do have a specific role. How they are executing that role, though, seems to be a little bit nefarious, in my opinion. They appear to have been told point blank that she was not interested in becoming a CSIS asset and to stop harassing her, and they didn't. Instead, they threatened her. Now, what did that threat mean? Would they try to incarcerate her, or would something else happen? I don't know. But I think it's very interesting to hear her perspective, how she interpreted her interactions with CSIS, and how aggressive they really were.
I'll pass my time to Ms. O'Connell.
And now we get to MP Jennifer O'Connell. And a lot of us were anticipating this because of what Lauren said about Jennifer earlier. But before we get to that interaction, let's recap what Lauren said, just for fun.
I think that it is rich that I am sat here and being asked what I have to do to stop foreign influence and foreign interference as a Canadian citizen. Well, we sit here with MPs like Jennifer O'Connell, who said boo-hoo to Conservatives who wanted actual elected politicians working with foreign governments to be exposed.
Chair, I move to resume debate on the amendment to the motion proposed by Mr. Morantz.
And with that, Jennifer O'Connell showed what a coward she really was, because with that motion to resume debate, it effectively ended Lauren Southern's testimony at committee. No, Jennifer O'Connell did not want to interact with Lauren Southern. So did this testimony actually add any value to the foreign interference inquiry? I'm not sure it did. It basically showed that Lauren didn't have any connection with the Russian government, with foreign interference, that she was just exercising her freedom of speech as an independent journalist. But that's just my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Put your comments down below. And while you're at it, please like this video, share with your friends and on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit that bell notification so you never miss another video. I'd also like to invite you to my live stream on Thursday evenings at 6 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube, where you can join in on the conversation. Also, I do teach the Canadian firearms safety courses, and these are courses you need to get your Canadian firearms license, also known as a PAL. So if you'd like to get your Canadian firearms license and you reside on Vancouver Island, please look me up. There are links in the description of this video to my website where you can sign up for one of my courses. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.